For decades, the traditional resume has been treated as this, I don't know, this sacred, almost static artifact of your professional life.
Right, like a structural blueprint or something.
Exactly, like a blueprint. But I am here to tell you right now, the traditional resume is completely dead.
Yeah, it really is.
And it is not for the reasons you might think either. It hasn't been replaced by slick video profiles or relentless networking. It has actually been demoted.
Oh, absolutely. Demoted is the perfect word for it.
Right. It's been buried by just an absolute avalanche of AI-generated, quote-unquote, surfaces.
Yeah, and we like to think of our professional documents as this solid proof of our worth, but they've become incredibly fragile now.
Super
I
fragile.
mean, the moment you submit a document today, it is instantly shredded, parsed, and rewritten by an automated system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core problem here is, well, it's terrifying, honestly. You are basically becoming a stranger with a document in a labor market that simply no longer reads deeply.
Exactly. A stranger with a document.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking the structural tension between the automated, generated professional services created by recruiting algorithms and the critical need for you to build a worker-owned evidence layer.
Which is so important right now.
It really is. And we are pulling our insights directly from Jeff Chamberlain's foundational trilogy on this topic, specifically the companion workbook seed outline for what comes after the resume.
Such a great source.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And we are pairing that with explicit 2025 and 2026 data from workforce and AI policy frameworks to really show you the mechanics of this shift.
You know, that phrase you used, a stranger with a document, it captures the anxiety of the modern job seeker perfectly.
Yeah.
Because we are operating in an environment right now that is incredibly surface heavy, but completely source poor.
Source poor. I like that. What does that look like in practice, though?
Well, professional identity has just fractured into dozens of disconnected surfaces. I mean, you have your LinkedIn profile, your applicant tracking system forms, your AI candidate summaries.
Internal HR dashboards, all of that.
Right, exactly. But the underlying source of truth, like the actual record of what you did and how you did it, that is entirely neglected.
Right. It just gets lost in the noise.
Completely. And to understand the scale of this, you just have to look at the October 2025 data from the Pew Research Center alongside the McKinsey State of AI Global Survey 2025.
Oh, yeah. Those reports are wild.
They really are. They map out this hyper-accelerated adoption curve of generative AI.
Yeah.
But crucially, the adoption isn't just about workers using AI to write faster.
Right. It's the other way around.
Exactly. It is about institutions using AI to process workers.
So the institutions hold all the cards, and they are using AI to essentially read the cards for them.
That's exactly it. Look at the specific capabilities of the major vendor platforms dictating the labor market today. You have Greenhouse heavily promoting features that summarize scorecards using AI.
Wow.
Yeah. You have Workday deploying what they call their skills cloud and aggressively pushing frameworks for demystifying AI in hiring. And then you have Bullhorn infusing AI across the entire life cycle of their recruitment workflow. I mean, these institutional platforms do not care about your beautifully crafted PDF.
No, they definitely don't.
They ingest your data, they run through an extraction model, they assign you to a constellation of tags in a skills cloud, and they just spit out a summary for the hiring manager.
They are effectively creating a version of you that's optimized purely for the machine's consumption.
Exactly. Not for the truth of your experience, but for the machine.
It makes me think of a heavily compressed JPEG image.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. You know when you take a crisp, high-resolution photo, you upload it to a social site, someone screenshots it, and then they upload it again.
Yeah, and it just gets blocky and awful.
Exactly. Every single time you run your resume through a new applicant tracking system or use a new AI tool to quickly tailor it for a specific job portal, it loses original data.
It pixelates the context.
Yes. Until suddenly, the actual human contribution you made is completely unrecognizable. It's just a blurry blob of corporate buzzword.
Which is heartbreaking when you think about the actual work people do.
It is. But hold on, let me interrupt this train of thought for a second. If I am applying for a job and a recruiter has to look at, say, 500 applications by Tuesday.
Which happens all the time.
Right. So isn't a crisp AI-generated summary actually doing everyone a massive favor? Why is a shorter, cleaner summary actively dangerous to my professional truth?
That's the trap, right? It becomes dangerous because AI isn't just changing how we write about our work. It is fundamentally changing how institutions remember work.
Okay.
Yeah. When a human HR manager is saved time by reading an AI summary of your career, that summary becomes the new ground truth for your identity within that institution.
The nuance is just gone
Like,
forever.
gone, completely gone. And this leads us directly into the hidden structural threat of the AI evidence layer.
And this is where the shift gets genuinely alarming for the listener, I think, because the threat isn't that you are using ChatGPT to write a zippy cover letter.
No, not at all.
The threat is that AI is now actively participating in the evidence layer itself. It is interpreting, extracting, and scoring your actual human work.
Yes, it's making judgments.
Exactly. Let's say you quietly mentored a struggling peer for 6 months, or you navigated this massive stakeholder crisis that never showed up in a quarterly metric because you successfully prevented the disaster in the first place.
Which is often the most valuable work you do.
Right. But AI looks at that complex, highly contextual contribution and just flattens it into a generic, weightless bullet point.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a full-blown crisis of human agency versus machine interpretation.
Yeah.
We can actually see the anatomy of this tension explicitly laid out in federal standards now.
Really? Like what?
Well, the NIST Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework, which is
Right.
often referred to as AI RMF 1.0, and that's paired with the generative AI profile, known as NIST AI 600.1. These are essential here.
Wait, so NIST actually has frameworks specifically for this kind of risk?
They do. These frameworks exist to measure and mitigate the risks of AI systems hallucinating or misrepresenting data. And when you overlay those technical frameworks with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's, the EEOC's 2024 guidance on AI and employment discrimination, a really stark reality emerges.
What are they saying?
These agencies are highlighting a critical vulnerability, which is who controls the record that the human is asked to trust.
Who controls the record? Let's play that out for a second. Say an AI tool scores candidates for a management track, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And it heavily weights aggressive quantitative metrics because, that's what dominated its training data.
Typical.
Right. So the candidate who spent an entire year repairing a toxic team culture gets their context entirely stripped away just because repaired culture doesn't parse into the AI's preferred output format.
Exactly. And then the Human Promotion Committee looks at the AI's summary.
Yeah.
The human assumes the summary is this objective distillation of your career.
Right. They trust the machine.
They do. They don't realize the machine systematically ignored your highest impact work. So the human decision is entirely downstream from a compromised, machine-interpreted record.
And when you don't govern your own evidence, you are entirely at the mercy of that downstream effect.
100%.
Think about what happens during a sudden crisis,
Right.
like a mass layoff. You lose access to your company laptop, your archived emails, your project files, all of it.
Overnight. Just gone.
Suddenly, you are forced to rebuild your entire professional story from memory under intense psychological pressure. You panic, you open an LLM, and you just beg it to make you sound impressive based on a few vague memories.
And what happens? You end up relying on whatever language sounds good in the moment, but you have zero actual proof.
Right. You've generated a surface, but you have absolutely no source.
Which brings us to Chamberlain's antidote.
Yes, the LPR. Let's get into that.
Right. So to survive this automated flattening, workers must build a private, governed architecture. The companion workbook outline calls this the living professional record, or LPR. This is a massive structural shift. We have to move away from resume-first thinking, where we just agonize over formatting a single document, and we have to adopt source layer thinking.
Okay, having a governed evidence base sounds great in theory, but I really need to know what this actually looks like. Let's define the LPR clearly so you, the listener, don't think we are asking you to build a massive enterprise database in your basement.
Right. Defining it by what it is not usually helps clear that up pretty fast.
Okay, what is it not?
The LPR is not a public profile. It is not a brag file where you just paste compliments from your boss. It is not a personal brand you perform for the internet.
So no LinkedIn influencer stuff.
Exactly, none of that. It is certainly not an employer-owned talent file, and it is absolutely not a permanent surveillance system tracking your every keystroke.
Thank goodness.
Right. The living professional record is a governed evidence base that you completely own and control. It contains distinct, interconnected layers. You have an evidence layer, a context layer, a judgment layer, a contribution layer, a layer for witnesses, a layer for claims, and fundamentally, a privacy layer.
Okay, to put that in perspective, though, How is this LPR actually different from my current system? Which, if I'm being totally honest, consists of taking frantic screenshots of nice Slack messages, dropping them into an Apple Note titled Career Stuff, and throwing some old PDFs into a very messy Google Drive folder.
Yeah, that's what most people do. But the difference between a junk drawer and a governed record really comes down to the architecture of proof.
Architecture of proof, what does that mean?
Well, a messy Google Drive folder has no connective tissue. If a recruiter asks you to prove a specific leadership claim, you're just digging through unorganized files trying to remember why you saved a specific email 3 years ago.
Guilty as charged.
Right. And we can actually look at the W3C Verifiable Credentials Data Model v2.0 to understand how digital proof is evolving globally right now.
The W3C model.
Yeah, it is essentially a cryptographic digital notary.
Yeah.
And it is fantastic for proving you hold a specific degree or a certification.
Like a digital diploma.
Exactly. But a notary cannot prove human judgment. A cryptographic credential doesn't capture the impossible constraints you faced when you were delivering a specific project.
Ah, I see.
The LPR exists to capture the human context that both those credentials and the AI summaries completely miss.
Which means we need to talk about the actual mechanics of the workbook outline, because I'm wondering, how do we build this architecture without turning ourselves into exhausted data entry clerks every Friday night?
Yeah, nobody wants a second job just tracking their first job.
Exactly.
So the companion workbook seed outline focuses on high-impact, low-friction habits. You do not write essays. You start with a module called the minimum viable record.
Minimum viable record. Sounds very agile.
It is. You simply answer 5 basic questions. What happened? What was my contribution? What's the evidence? What claim does it support? And critically, what's private?
Wow, so it forces you to isolate the signal from the noise immediately. Instead of writing a 3-page journal entry about a stressful week, you just extract the usable data.
Precisely. And from there, you move to the context rehydration module.
Context rehydration. I love that phrasing.
It's vital. Because human memory is incredibly volatile. You have to capture the scale, the stakes, and the constraints around the evidence before you forget them.
Right.
I mean, claiming I increased sales by 20% means nothing on its own.
Right. Anyone can write that.
But claiming I increased sales by 20% while our supply chain collapsed and half the engineering team quit. Now, that is high signal context that an AI summary will never capture unless you feed it to the system.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The next module is claim maturity calibration. You have to sort your professional claims into specific categories, right? Like verified, supported, emerging, aspirational, unsupported, stale, or unsafe.
Exactly.
And this mapping process is exactly like financial accounting. You wouldn't write a check, which is essentially a claim, without knowing you have the actual funds in the bank, the evidence to back it up.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Right, because if you overclaim on a resume, you bounce the check. You risk total exposure and severe damage to your credibility. But if you underclaim, which so many people do because they honestly just forget their own wins, you totally shortchange your value in the market.
That analogy hits the underlying mechanism perfectly. And, extending the finance analogy, there are strict rules about auditing and confidentiality.
Oh, for sure.
The workbook actually grounds the privacy layer of the LPR by explicitly citing the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC Protecting Personal Information Guide, and the United States Patent and Trademark Office Trade Secret Policy.
Oh, wow. So this is serious compliance territory.
It is. As a worker, you are operating as a custodian of sensitive information. You must govern your privacy tiers and your artifact safety.
Right.
You have to know exactly what can be public, what must be redacted, what can only be shared verbally in a closed interview setting, and what is strictly metadata only.
Consider what that actually means in practice for a second. Let's say you solved a massive proprietary database scaling issue for your current employer.
A big win.
Huge win. You want to add that to your resume, so you just dump your raw project notes into a public LLM and ask it to write a bullet point.
Oh, no.
Right? You have potentially just leaked your employer's protected trade secrets into a public training model. You were just trying to solve an employability problem, and you just created a massive legal liability for yourself.
Exactly. And the LPR architecture prevents that entirely. It forces you to classify and redact information at the source layer long before an AI ever touches it.
So what does this all mean for the listener? We now have this private, highly governed, contextualized source of truth, but we still have to live in the real world.
Right. You still need a job.
We still have to apply for jobs. If I'm keeping all this rich context locked in a private vault, how do I safely use AI to translate this deeply private evidence into public surfaces like resumes, portfolios, and interview stories while maintaining my authorship and my integrity?
What's fascinating here is how the workbook addresses the translation phase through the AI provenance and integrity log.
The provenance log.
Yeah, this is the operational bridge between your private record and the public labor market. It's a framework where you track your specific interactions with AI.
Interesting.
You log the source materials you fed into the tool, the specific prompts you used, the AI outputs you accepted, the ones you rejected, and the privacy boundaries you enforced.
It's like maintaining a chain of custody for your own identity.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And the reference documents do acknowledge that the tech giants are trying to build systemic guardrails.
Right, like enterprise features.
Yeah, systems like OpenAI's enterprise privacy standards and Microsoft's Copilot data protection policies, they dictate how corporate data is shielded from public training models.
Okay, well, that's good at least.
It is. Those enterprise protections are improving. But relying on a corporation's terms of service is not a substitute for your own governance. The ultimate responsibility for truth lies with your personal provenance log.
Right.
Rendering a resume from your record means adapting the surface for the audience without ever losing the original source.
But let me challenge the core premise here for a minute.
Sure, go for it.
If I'm taking my meticulously governed private LPR and I'm feeding it into ChatGPT to write a resume bullet, aren't I just feeding the exact machine we are trying to protect ourselves from? I mean, at what point does the tool's absolute fluency, its ability to make everything sound incredibly polished and authoritative, simply override my actual truth?
That tension right there is exactly why the integrity log is non-negotiable.
How so?
Because AI is incredibly useful, but only when it is treated strictly as a translator of your evidence, never as the author of your identity.
Translator, not author.
Right. If you give an AI a blank prompt and say, write me a resume for a senior project manager, it will invent a coherent, fluent, but ultimately hollow identity based on statistical averages. It literally hallucinates a persona.
Yeah, we've all seen those generic resumes.
Exactly. But if you give the AI your context rehydration notes and say, translate these specific constraints, these specific redacted metrics, and these verified claims into a two-line summary, it becomes a powerful translation engine.
Ah, I see the difference.
You are dictating the truth. The machine is merely formatting the syntax.
You govern the input, which means you totally dictate the output. You stop asking the tool, how do I make myself sound good? And you start asking yourself, what is demonstrably true? What proves it? And how should it be translated for this specific audience?
Yeah.
The record serves the person, not the system.
It fundamentally flips the power dynamic back to you. The systems parse surfaces, but you own the source.
That is so empowering.
It really is. And this raises a super important question for you to consider as we close this out. We've talked entirely about today's labor market, where AI generates and reads text.
Right.
But look at the trajectory of digital verification. We are moving toward a zero-trust digital environment. Imagine a labor market 3 or 4 years from now, where an employer doesn't just ask what you did, but requires cryptographic proof that a human actually produced the output, rather than an autonomous agent.
Wow. That's a wild thought, but totally plausible.
Right. If your entire professional history exists only as a series of AI-generated surfaces without a private, governed evidence layer backing it up, how will you prove your own humanity?
You won't be able to.
Exactly. How will you prove you were the one who exercised the judgment, made the hard calls, and generated the actual value? It is time to build your source layer today, so you hold the keys to your own identity tomorrow.